Roger. Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir. You're good. My heart knows myself.
Would you please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Father, we come to you this evening to ask for your blessings and your grace, and we ask for your help this evening. We've got so many members of our community that are down with sickness that we're going to ask you to keep us in your blessings and keep us safe. We need to find a way to stop the spread of this, and so we would ask you to do that. We'd ask you to please be with all of our veterans and let us always remember the service that they've given us to protect our way of life. We ask that you watch over the members serving in the armed forces now and all of our first responders. We ask you to be with us this evening as we do the business of the city. Give us clear heads and always look to the future. These things we ask in your name, and amen.
Amen.
Mr. Skogstad, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening we have two people that have signed up for the public forum, so we'll start this evening with Henry Sasson.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. I do this, Henry Sasson, 1307 Greenmount Hills Drive. I do this with all the projects and things that I work on, so this is my report out on what I learned during this whole process, so I'd share it with everybody. Going through, first of all, congratulations to the winners. I didn't get a chance to say it to everybody, but job well done. Even though I lost, I won. I lost 25 pounds in the process of walking around. So cheer here. Going through, I just want to go through this laundry list of stuff. Also thank those that voted for me. In the process of running for Vienna City Council, I knocked on 5,517 doors, personally. No help. I knocked. Out of those doors, you can call me the Girl Scouts. You can call me the Vienna Police or Fire Department for Ice Cream Social, or you can call me whatever, but I knocked on doors. Out of those doors, 423 of the 1,015 that weren't home called me back in the evening so I could talk to those citizens, so thank you for them calling back. Even though I'm not a Vienna resident, a native, I should say, and I didn't use any signs or whatever, I got 1,153 votes, so I'm happy. Going through my learnings and observations, Vienna residents are very open and welcoming to talk with. In some cases, they brought tears to my eyes with some of the discussions that we had about their life personally or some of the issues that they're having. There are more wheelchair people in Vienna than I thought. One thing that we ought to reach out to is understand where they live, because during the wintertime, they're going to have a tough time, and maybe we as a city can do something differently to make sure that that area where their home is gets cleared. There were various residents that weren't registered to vote, but they did a lot of complaining. So I said, if you're complaining, you need to vote. If you don't vote, you can't complain. So the next time, rule of thumb is make sure you have the forms to fill out to give people to vote so they can register. Vienna has a lot of snowbirds. I didn't think they had as many as we do, but we have a lot of them. And what I call snowbirds is people that leave here in November and head for Florida. A lot of people said that our city officials, whether it's here or the city building or whatever, up on 60th Street are disconnected from its residents. people were talking, I called Kathy even about why are the candidates listed as nonpartisan as opposed to by their political party. A lot of people chose to, even though the voting was early, I still was knocking on doors, and they said we just skipped it instead of voting for the person because we didn't know what their political party or affiliation was. The citizens talked about that there's a lack of ownership and accountability with our current city council. There was a lady that her and her son were diehard Democrats, and they held me up for about 25 minutes talking, and they kept wanting to pull it to the national election. I kept pulling it back to the city. I said, there's nothing I can do about national. And they said, even though I was a Republican, they said, we earned your respect because you hung out with us, you talked, you didn't yell, you didn't complain, you just tried pulling us back to reality, to Vienna, not the national election. The other thing was, there was a guy who called my home. He was 64 years old. He said he never voted for a Republican in his life, but he was voting for me. He also wanted to donate, and I said, thank you, but I'm not accepting cash contributions or money. I'm self-funded. And there was an 84-year-old woman that did the same thing. So it was kind of neat to have people call and say that. So there was that part. The other thing, too, was there was less than a handful of people that were negative because they asked you as soon as what your party affiliation was, and then it cussed you out. There was probably 3 or 4, but if elected or not elected, you still treat them as if they were a citizen, no matter if they were still a pompous butthole. Going through, there are abandoned vehicles in Vienna, and the vehicles, as you can tell, were parked in these people's driveway or their yard. The insides have been gutted out, but they've complained and the vehicles are still there. So as a city, I mean, it's an eyesore, something that we ought to look at addressing. Homeowners neglecting property upkeep, that came up a lot from knocking on doors. They said they complained to the city and things weren't really addressed the way they need to be. And they said it brings our property values down. The other thing too is dumpster divers at Goodwill. The residents that live there on the backside of Goodwill always complain that there's a lot of dumpster diving, and then they end up having to clean up because things don't get cleaned up. One thing that surprised me was Vienna has a drug problem, and it's not in one spot. I started up on 60th, worked my way all the way down and all the way back over the some months I was walking, and the people were really concerned, and it floored me, and they said, we'll tell you exactly where it's at. So as a city, and I know Tom talked about it too, and when he talked about it, I scratched my head, but the more knocking I did on doors, they even showed me that that person lived right there and they're in jail right now because they were arrested, and that's his mother-in-law or whatever taking care of the house right now. Many residents own dogs or a cat. The majority are indoor pets. They don't want wild cats running loose. They say that's a problem, and I can understand it because every door I knocked on, I know Jack was talking about dogs barking and loose. All the walking I did, I didn't come across any, dogs that weren't on leashes. They were, in the house. When you knocked, the owner would take them back and come out on the porch. A majority of the residents have some type of security system, whether it's an alarm, cameras, or whatever. The other thing that was surprising, most people have 3 locks on their doors, not 2. When you're waiting on somebody, your ears are listening if they're coming to the door or whatever, and it's click, click, click. So that surprised me. Deer walking the streets of Vienna freely as our kids. As I was walking, they were walking. And a lot of residents are saying that they're fed up with it. They said they spent a lot of money on their shrubs and their flowers, and then they get eaten. So what we talked about before, they said really needs to be addressed. There are some residents in Vienna that live here, but they have Ohio license plates on their vehicles. That's going to have to be addressed, and the only thing I can say is people ought to start being vigilant and probably turning them in. A lot of speeding. I almost got hit a couple times, even though I was paying attention and walking. And that's on 28th Street, 23rd Street, and River Road. I don't know, the people have complained, can you guys put speed bumps in those areas? Because those are long strips and people really want to fly. The other thing that may be beneficial is using a roving police officer. So you sit here at this intersection or away where you can see people blowing through a stop sign, if you give a ticket, move to the next location or whatever. Don't just sit there, because once you've nailed one person, word's gonna be out that there's a cop there. The other thing I noticed, and the fire chief's not here because they got training, is there's usually trees overlooking the street and stuff. And I know that for a fire truck and stuff to get through, there should be like a canopy. I don't know if it's 16 or 20 feet. There are some streets where the tree branches and stuff come in that really need to be addressed if you're trying to get a fire truck through. Also, that ties into the tree shrubs set back from the road and sidewalks, because a lot of times they're sticking out into the road or into a sidewalk. If that's the case, they should probably be cut back. I don't know if it's 3 feet, 10 feet. On the back streets, there's some old sidewalks that are in disrepair. What's their future? Do they even need it? Because it looks like they haven't been used for years, and there, if that's the case, you can probably widen out the street if you need to. There was a resident living in Vienna for 5 years, and he's never received the City of Vienna newsletter, the quarterly newsletter. So I told him what to do, come here, even though he gets a water bill and everything, he's never been on a list. And he also has Suddenlink, and he can never get into the phone book either. So I told him he needs to reach out to those people. So hopefully he came here, and if not, I'll knock on his door and see if he's done it yet. There was a lot of gas work done on putting new lines in, and it was up around Jackson and some of the other side streets. They put dirt back over and gravel. Hopefully those get repaired, because if they leave it like that, it's an eyesore. The gas company, if they're doing that stuff, they ought to be held responsible for fixing the sidewalks. There's stop signs that are obstructed by tree branches, and as the tree branches started drooping with the leaves, and in the fall, when you come up to an intersection, you couldn't see the stop sign. So we ought to make sure those branches get cleared. There's many homes in Vienna that are rentals. Landlords need to keep up their home and property. And in some cases, the lady showed me where part of an old house came down, even though she complained, and almost hit her grandson. Some residents would like to see some type of recreational river access with what's going on. Golf carts, quads, and mules, as some people know them, etc. People aren't obeying the law. This was even before the rules changed. This is up behind Jackson off of 28th Street. You go up and over to the left. There's a lot of kids flying up through there. I personally witnessed some of that too, and that's what some of the neighbors said. Somebody's going to get killed. Some people said, what's the point of having ordinances if they aren't being enforced? Some people brought up, why doesn't the news media report out what is actually happening at some of the city council meetings? They get more info from the live stream that's happening versus what may be reported in the news. At the end of the day, I had fun. I learned a lot about Vienna and its residents. I want to thank my wife and kids, because it did take up a lot of my time to do this stuff, because I knocked on doors all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and every day after work. Sasson 2024, we'll see. But thanks, everybody.
Did we give you enough time?
Yes, you did. Thanks.
You're welcome.
But going through, I just want to report out, because it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about the Vienna residents. And I think everybody ought to hear, because I don't think a lot of people knock door to door like this and got the feedback. So thanks.
Who's on number 2?
Kim Williams.
Good evening. My name's Kim Williams, 801 49th Street. Congratulations, obviously, to everyone who won. And for those who didn't, we sure appreciate all your years of service to the city of Vienna. Speaking of COVID, I know everybody saw the front page of the paper today. We are in a pretty big spike. We're up over 30% from last week. And nobody has a crystal ball, and I don't think COVID's going away anytime soon. And which brings me to what I want to talk about tonight, which I was really excited to see the on the agenda this evening was an ordinance amending the business and occupation tax, adding a procedure to allow council by resolution to increase or decrease business and occupation tax exemption amounts for an individual for a specified quarter. And I guess I wasn't aware, but we do have an exemption of $25, which is pretty cool. So what's proposed in this ordinance is council may by resolution increase or decrease the $25 per quarter exemption as to the amount of the tax computed under this article to not more than $50 and not less than $25 for any single quarter. Said exemption shall be only for the quarter specified in the resolution and shall return at the end of the specified quarter to the amount set out in paragraph A, which is the original $25. So, if you can see this, we go from a $25 exemption that we currently have, and if council deems it necessary to give a B&O exemption to increase that, but only to $50. And I mean, while any extra exemption is nice, I don't think that $50 is very impactful. So while I was very excited to see this on the agenda this evening, I don't really think it means anything. It's not really a tool that $50 is not going to really help anybody. If everyone follows the paper, I know that in Parkersburg, Mayor Joyce proposed exempting $500 on their B&O tax for 1 quarter. And when they did that, as a result, almost 1,500 businesses had no tax liability for that quarter. The $500 reduced their B&O revenue by about $194,000. So that was for the quarter of April, May, and June. And then, after that was done, he did it again. Okay, so they did a second round of a $500 exemption for the quarter covering July, August, and September. So Parkersburg, just like Vienna, got CARES Act money. You know, we're at over $1.1 million, I think, and hopefully we'll still get some more. And we've been fortunate as far as our tax revenue and so on and so forth that COVID has not really hit the city financially as much as certainly not as much as I anticipated, and hopefully, that will remain the same, but we don't have a crystal ball and we don't know what the future is going to hold. So I'm very conservative by nature regarding money, so I can appreciate kind of going slow on a $50 exemption, but I don't think that that's not going to address anything. What would be interesting, though, what could address something, is if this resolution tonight, Part B, would just be changed to read, council may, by resolution, increase the $25 per quarter exemption as to the amount of tax computed under this article for any single quarter. Said exemption shall be only for the quarter specified in the resolution and shall return at the end of the specific quarter to the amount set out in paragraph A, which is the original $25. So what I'm getting at, instead of removing a tool out of the toolbox by capping an exemption to $50, you can just strike out, the $50 part and leave it open-ended to allow future councils to look at the circumstances and make a decision on what would be the best exemption. So I know Mrs. Roberts, as the financial director, she can plug all the numbers into different formulas and come up with different scenarios to what the impact would most likely be to the city. But by just capping it at $50, you've now tied your hands. And if $50 would be beneficial, I could see that. But as you can see from the first chart that I put out, I mean, it's not going to pay the water bill for any business. And so we have a lot of small businesses. I know where my business is located, there's a coffee house, there's a hot dog restaurant, there's, hair places and so on and so forth. Those are businesses that do not generate a lot of income. They're not going to. So if you had like a $500 exemption for a quarter, most likely those businesses would end up not paying any B&O tax. So I hope council will take that under consideration this evening instead of just going ahead with this as written, and consider amending it to just remove out the $50 cap. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for November the 12th, 2020. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll. This evening we are a little light. Mr. Leach, Mr. Conley, and Mr. Rogers are absent from this evening, but we do have a quorum, so we will proceed. The minutes from the regular council meeting held on October the 22nd, 2020 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any objections or corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. The report of the treasurer, the reconciliation of funds is included in your packet. As you can tell, our revenues are solid and our bills are paid, and the city is on extremely good financial standing. So we'll move into our agenda this evening. The first item on our agenda is new business. We've got a unique situation here. With us this evening is Mr. Mark Brogno. He is representing the Grand Central Mall. And as you all are aware, in our previous meetings, we've done resolutions and what have you, and we've finally gotten to the point where the West Virginia Development Office has approved the application for the tax increment financing for the Vienna Grand Central redevelopment project. So we are here this evening to pass the ordinance to allow the actual process to start. This will be first reading on this. We will put the second reading up for approval in December at our meeting there, but this will be the first reading tonight. Prior to the meeting and the second vote on the ordinance on the December the 10th, there will be another public hearing. And so I'd like to read this as it is presented. This is an ordinance on first reading approving, creating, and establishing a tax increment financing district in the city of Vienna, West Virginia, to be known as City of Vienna Redevelopment District Number 1, and improving a tax increment financing project to be known as Vienna Grand Central Redevelopment Project, establishing a tax increment financing fund and providing for other matters in connection therewith, approving a form of development agreement and adopting other provisions related thereto. So I'll entertain a motion on first reading for the approval of the ordinance approving, creating, and establishing a tax increment financing district in the city of Vienna.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve on first reading the approving, creating, and establishing a tax increment financing district in the city of Vienna. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor on first reading, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Mark, I thank you for taking the trip up here today. You're from Morgantown, I believe.
Yeah.
So, we appreciate all your efforts, and we're certainly grateful to the Grand Central Mall for this new development. It's going to be a real shot in the arm for the city of Vienna, and we're looking very forward to the first of the year when things start to move. So anyway, we'll see you on December the 10th. If anything comes up, we'll be in touch, and you can go to Morgantown, sir.
All right, thank you. You all have a good evening.
All right.
See you, Mark.
The second item on our agenda this evening is a resolution amending the 2019-2020 CDBG budget. This is to allow for the Family Relief Fund. Tony?
I think tonight must be the night to talk about COVID, because that's why I'm here to talk about COVID-19. As a result of COVID-19, the city of Vienna has received an additional $56,370 of CDBG funds, and that is in addition to the $63,506 that we received several months ago. With the original $63,506, the city developed the Small Business Relief Fund program. And with this amount of money that we're getting now, we hope to develop the Family Relief Program, where a person who has utility bills and or housing payment, whether it be a mortgage or a rent payment that is behind, can apply for up to $2,000 of relief through these funds. The program will be administered by the Community Resources, Inc., and they will be receiving a 5% fee or $2,818. They also administer the program for the City of Parkersburg, for the Sisters Health Foundation, for United Way, and for the Parkersburg Area Community Foundation. So it's a good fit for them to take on the City of Vienna's program. Again, under the program, a person would have to fill out an application. They could receive up to $2,000. They'll have to provide the documentation of why they're not able to make their payments, whether it's a job loss, a decrease in hours, whatever it might be that's related to COVID-19. And they'll also then have to show us their turn-off notice or their notice from their landlord or whatever. Once they're approved, the payments will not go to them directly, but rather Community Resources will make the payment to the agency, whether it's the electric company, gas company, whatever it might be. And just to give you, the person also has to qualify for the Section 8 income limits. And just to give you an example, if it's a family of one, they can make up to $35,500 per year. And a family of four could make up to $50,700 per year. So I'm not wishing that a lot of people need this assistance, but I'm saying it's going to be made available to a wide group of people. We've held our public hearing on Tuesday. If council approves it tonight, it will be sent to the HUD Pittsburgh office for their approval. And once they receive it, then once we receive their approval, the mayor will sign the agreement with Community Resources, and then we'll begin this program.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you. So I'll just stay right there for a second, Tony, if you would. I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Vienna that the following projects be included in the 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 grant application. Now, the Family Relief Fund, $53,552. The Family Relief Fund Administration, $2,818 for a total of $56,370. Upon adoption of this resolution, the City Council of the City of Vienna hereby adopts the amended 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan for its Community Development Block Grant Program and its 2016-2020 5-year consolidated plan. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of this resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution for the 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 grant application, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Tony, thank you.
Could I add one thing? Just an update on the Small Business Relief Program. We hope to close on 4 loans, or 4 projects, I should say, within the next 2 weeks.
Oh, that's great.
And we still have plenty of money, so if you know any small business that needs financing, please have them contact the regional council.
Yeah, the other thing I'd like to say, because of what you just said, we would really like to get this money out in the community. So the Family Relief Fund and the Small Business Fund, please, they've made the paperwork a little easier. And so we would really we want to give every dollar of it away. So we'd like you to apply.
Yes.
All right? So, Tony, thank you.
How much longer do they have, Tony, to apply?
Technically, we have 6 years to spend the funds.
Oh, okay. So
But we're hoping, we don't want to do the paperwork for 6 years. So we're hoping it gets spent very quickly.
All right.
Thank you, Tony.
Uh,
If you need to leave for Morgantown, you can leave too. Oh, wait a minute, you're just going to Market Street. All right. The next item on our agenda this evening is an ordinance on first reading, amending Article 711.03 of the Business and Occupation Tax, adding a procedure to allow council by resolution to increase or decrease business and occupation tax exemption amounts for an individual specified quarter. Amy, are you going to talk now or after we?
It's up to you when you want me
We can do it now. You're up.
to. Okay. So Councilman Elam came and met with me last week, can you hear me, regarding the B&O tax. What we could do for taxpayers, and we looked at a couple different scenarios. We talked about the rates, which really disproportionately do not help the small business. They typically help the large business more than the small. So then we looked at the back end, the exemption. And so just for reference, if you have a business, a small business that brings in $10,000 a quarter, at our current rate, which we are 80% retail in Vienna, that business would owe $40. They'd get a $25 exemption, and they'd pay the city $15. Basically $5 a month to be in business in Vienna. Right now, that $25 prior to COVID is the highest exemption in the state. And we've offered it for as long as I can remember. We have offered that $25 exemption. Most cities don't offer any exemption. Parkersburg has the current one during COVID that they are offering. So Councilman Elam and I looked at some options, and what he decided on was that maybe we, reach out there and double that exemption this quarter. And quite honestly, we have quite a few taxpayers that pay the city of Vienna less than $100. The biggest amount of our B&O tax comes from 10 businesses in Vienna. We have a very large amount of taxpayers that pay less than $100 to the city of Vienna. So, in my opinion, the $50 would be helpful to the small business person, but I don't pick the rate, you do. So the only thing I can do is furnish you numbers based on your decision on that. Do you have any questions about it?
No, no question.
Okay. Amy, we'll do you like we did Tony, if you'll stand there for just a moment.
Sure.
I'm going to read the ordinance by title only. This is an ordinance amending Article 711.03 of the Business and Occupation Tax, adding a procedure to allow council by resolution to increase or decrease business and occupation tax exemption amounts for an individual specified quarter. So I'll entertain a motion on first reading for the ordinance amending Article 711.03.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the ordinance on first reading amending Article 711.03. Is there any further discussion?
No, I just want to say, I thank Amy for meeting with me, because that's something I told the people I wanted to do, and she gave a very good explanation, very well rehearsed in this stuff, so I thank you for her expertise in this stuff. And I know Kim said something about the thing that Parkersburg is doing, and that is a big difference, but I think about with us, we didn't put a time frame on this, so we might do it for a quarter, we might do it for the next year, it might be permanent,
But I think it is showing that we're doing something. We're not just sitting on the money, with no plan. And it's a good amount, I think, to start out with. Like I say, leaving it open ended with how long we do this for. I liked how we came up with that.
Mike, thank you for taking initiative on this. I know that I also reviewed the numbers with Amy extensively, and Kim did bring up an interesting statistic, the $194,000. If I understood my conversation with Amy, the $50 reduction that we would do would actually cost the city $50,000. And so that's 25% of what Parkersburg's is. However, their budget's huge compared to ours. And so,
Somewhere between 25 and 50.
depending on what it is,
it's-
okay?
It's hard to tell because you have those people that won't get the full 50. They'll only get 30, if they only owe $35, they're only getting 35 of the 50, so it's not a flat.
Right, there's no credit issue or anything, right? But at any rate, so thank you for taking initiative on that. So, any further discussion? And I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the ordinance amending Article 71103 on first reading, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We'll be back on the agenda on the December the 10th meeting for second reading.
Would
Thank
you
you.
like me to do the bid approval?
Yeah, that's great. Do you have the numbers with you?
Yes.
Okay. So the last item that we have on our agenda this evening is a bid approval for the police department for cruiser financing.
These sealed bids for the financing of the two 2021 Ford Utility Interceptor vehicles plus equipment were opened on Thursday, November 5th at 10 a.m. with the following results. United Bank gave a 3-year rate of 1.84%, a 4-year rate of 1.95%, West Banco, 3 years, 2.0%, 4 years, 2.10%. After discussions with the department head, and this went to Budget and Finance with their recommendation to accept the United Bank 3-year 1.84% rate. This funding is in the city's general fund 455-6559, which is the police department capital outlay.
All right, thank you. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the bid from United Bank for a 3-year term at 1.84% for the financing of the 2 police cruisers.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the sealed bid from United Bank for a 3-year funding of financing for 1.84%. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Those are fantastic numbers, Amy. That's, wow, 1.84. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Are there any council comments this evening?
There is. Mayor, I want to give a shout out to the fire department this evening. 2 weeks ago today, actually on the 29th, which is exactly 2 weeks ago today, there was an incident on Grand Central Avenue down here involving electric pole and electric power lines. And what I want to say is to shut down the busiest highway in the state of West Virginia in both directions and keep traffic flowing the way they did was, I think tremendous. So kudos to them, and also to the water department. Our power company had a little accident when they was digging a hole for a new pole and got into a water line, but they responded quickly as well. But I thought that was a kind of a major accomplishment, like I said, to shut down. I mean, and it is the busiest road in West Virginia in both directions for over 4 hours, and keep things going the way they did. So I just wanted to recognize them for that. Is that me?
I don't know.
Ooh.
But at any rate, Roger, thank you. We are blessed to have one of the greatest group of people on that fire department it doesn't make any difference what it is. They come out and, to stand there for 4 hours and direct that traffic.
In the pouring rain.
And it went through a neighborhood and it was still smooth, But, yeah, it was a great job, so thank you.
And I just want to give you guys that ran for office, I know, Kim, congratulate you on your victory. I think you'll be a valuable asset. I know Kelly and Henry also ran, and like I say, I commend you guys for getting in this stuff. You throw your name out there, you don't know what's going to happen, but keep trying, because it's a good gig. I enjoy it, and I think you all will too. And like I say, the first time I ran, I got beat by Tom Mazer. He didn't put out a sign. That was he dwarfed me. So anyway, but Henry, I wrote down everything you said on those things, and that's what I like. I commend you, Henry, for doing door to door, and finding out these things. And there's some good things you found out, and that's what it needs. I think this next council, I think, will address these things. We have a lot ahead of us, but and I think with the newspaper, I think we have a great reporter right now with Jen. I've read some of her articles all through the election stuff, and I think we got to give. Of course, they're probably loser when all the good ones go somewhere else, but I thank you for what you're doing in your covering of city news. So that's it.
Okay. So I have a couple announcements that I'd like to make. They are beginning to do the process of paving River Road. They started the milling today. They're about halfway done on it. That is a state highway, and it is being done by the Department of Highways. But I would encourage everyone to avoid that area. It's so narrow that with that milling machine, it's very difficult to get around. So please find another way for the next few days. It'll be great when it's done, because that's road has needed it for a long time. The next regular council session will be December the 10th. Our regularly scheduled meeting would have fallen on Thanksgiving Day, and so we typically do not have that. Obviously, if something comes up, we'll have an emergency meeting, but for now, the next meeting will be December the 10th. On December the 1st, we will do our annual tree lighting. It's going to be at Neal School this year instead of back at the community building. We're going to go with a more outside venue. We're going to use the area at Neal School inside the fence for the crowd, and so we'll be able to spread out, and we'll do it down there this year instead of back at the community building. The Christmas parade will be Saturday, December the 5th at 11 o'clock, as it always has been. We're going to encourage everyone to please space out and not stand so close. And obviously, we encourage everyone to wear a mask. We've got to get a handle on this explosion that's going on right now. And the only way we can do that is if everyone participates. You have to not only keep yourself safe, but please keep other people safe as well. I spoke with Councilman Conley today. I'm very concerned about Roger. He sounded terrible. And so if you get a moment, I'd appreciate you saying a prayer for he and his family. There are lots of people in our community that are hit by this, but Roger was extremely sick. Man, I was surprised how bad he sounded. So at any rate, keep them in your prayers. Henry, I have to say, I bet you didn't realize how big Vienna was until you started walking.
Yep.
You know,
It was a feat.
I have the greatest respect for people that move outside the local races. It is incredible to me how big Wood County is. When you go from Belleville all the way to Waverly, it is huge. And then if you wanted to run for a state office and you have to go even farther than that, or if you wanted to go on a national office, I don't see how people do it. But at any rate, thank you for your suggestions and your comments. It's interesting. One of the things that came back was someone said what an outstanding swimmer one of your kids is. So evidently some of the community members also got to know you as well. So that was a good thing. All right. With that, meeting adjourned.